Hi. In this short video essay, I'll be examining and explaining Nietzsche's assertions about conscience, as discussed in his second treatise on the genealogy of morality. I'll discuss its origins and implications toward man. Alright, let's dive in.
Don't know much biology.
To explain what the human conscience is, we'll first have to answer the question, how does one breed an animal permitted to promise? This is the question Nietzsche poses in the first chapter of the second treatise. Now, he states that two faculties must be present in man, distinguishing the ability to promise. The first is that he must have a memory. For how else could someone carry out a promise if they can't even remember it? The second is that man must have regularity, that they must be predictable and have a foreseeable future to an extent. Nietzsche claims that this concept of regularity stems from a term he coined, the morality of custom. This is the idea that in mankind's advancement from primitive living to communal and civilized living, man began to control his behavior and began to suppress natural but yet cruel and animalistic intentions in order to conform to society. So now, with these two capacities of memory and regularity, man can carry out a promise. Additionally, this faculty then creates the internal conscience. Finally, this is the ability of self-assessment, of self-evaluation, and the measuring of ourselves in the light of customary standards, or the standards we deem and have grown accustomed to as morally just.
Don't know much about a science book.
So I kind of just breezed by the capacity of memory because, duh. But Nietzsche actually explains this human ability and how it's possible by discussing the opposite capacity, which is forgetfulness. He states that forgetfulness is also an active ability of the mind, and an important suppression of further thought. See, forgetfulness isn't just some smooth brain characteristic of a guy. I do forget a lot of stuff, but Nietzsche says it's the instrument for immediacy, or for true presence in the moment. One wouldn't be able to learn or be happy in the present if they were constantly thinking ahead or exercising an overwhelming use of their memory. So there you have it, forgetfulness and memory.
Wonderful world this would be.
The main focus of Nietzsche's second treatise is the answer as to why man's awareness of his conscience often leads to thoughts of self-condemning and guilt, what he labels as bad conscience. Going back to the morality of custom, Nietzsche believes that this social straitjacket that induces conformity and suppresses animalistic instinct is what ultimately leads to internalized guilt. You see, when instinctual energy isn't discharged, because the confines of society don't allow it to be, it's then forced to be internalized and meddled with in the mind of the actor. This is where suffering becomes present and self-loathing is conjured. Because law forbids it, you feel like a sick and cruel person for even conjuring a thought. It becomes really paradoxical because as a citizen, you very much appreciate the law and the protection it offers, and yet you still initially had that thought of cruelty. But I don't think mere thought makes you evil. It certainly doesn't make you a bona fide villain. I mean, how bad is a villain whose evil plans never actually come into fruition? Alright, so the modern reality is that society at large forces man to wither away internally, as he victimizes himself over naturally cruel instinct and thought. Right? Wrong. When man chooses not to succumb to his beast-like intentions, the route for surefire destruction, he then triumphs over life as a truly controlled, autonomous being. As Nietzsche writes, this uncanny, terrible, but joyous labor of a soul voluntarily split within itself, which makes itself suffer out of the pleasure of making suffer, this whole active, bad conscience has finally, as a true womb of ideal and imaginative events, brought a wealth of novel, disconcerting beauty and affirmation to light.